Hello there, good evening and welcome. Happy New Year to you all. This is the very first edition of our program, ABUJA Dispatch in 2020. And like we always say on this program, this is a platform created to bring to your living room those events and issues, and indeed those characters that have shaped the entire landscape of the federal capital city, Abuja, in the last 7 days. Adegboyega Arogbodo is my name. Let's start off with the weekly review of those events that made up our headlines in the outgoing week.
You're welcome. Thank you. How are you? Thank you.
President Muhammadu Buhari earlier in the week reiterated his desires for stability, peace, progress and prosperity in the entire West African sub-region. Responding to Umaru Mukhtar Sissoko Embalo, the president-elect of Guinea-Bissau, who came to Nigeria on a thank-you visit and to express his good wishes following his emergence as winner in the just-concluded elections in that country. President Buhari said, "Without stability, there can be no development. We will do whatever it takes to stabilize the sub-region." President Buhari commended the outgoing president, Jose Mario Vaz, who was a candidate in the elections, for supporting the emergence of Embalo in the second round of balloting in the interest of peace and stability. The Nigerian president expressed his desires for both countries to work together for the betterment of their peoples and reiterated his vision for peace, progress and prosperity in West Africa.
The federal government has announced plans to establish a diaspora policy that will guide all its engagements with Nigerians living abroad. The policy is part of government's plan to accommodate and adequately address all diaspora issues, including welfare of Nigerian citizens outside the country. Chairman of the Nigerian Diaspora Commission, Honorable Abike Dabiri Erewa, said the policy will be considered by the Federal Executive Council in the new year. Among other incentives in the pipeline is a database for those in the diaspora and a diaspora trust fund to allow them contribute to the development of the country. She also announced plans to engage the National Assembly to amend the constitution to allow Nigerians living abroad to vote during general elections.
The federal government of Nigeria says it's reassessing the security situation in the country in order to begin a pull-out of the military from areas it claims have been retaken from insurgents. The decision was made during last Security Council meeting held with President Muhammadu Buhari. Chief of Naval Staff Vice Admiral Ibok Ete Ekwe Ibas announced after the meeting that an initial assessment by Council indicates an overall improvement of the country's security situation. The withdrawal of the military is expected to allow the Nigerian police take over in place where desired targets are believed to have been achieved. Admiral Ekwe Ibas also hinted that the military will take delivery of technological-backed hardware in 2020 that would enhance efficiency and improve intelligence in security operations. Meanwhile, President Muhammadu Buhari has reassured Nigerians that the withdrawal of the military from areas where peace had been restored will not be done in a manner that will expose communities to more risk of attacks. The president said the withdrawal exercise will be gradual and carefully planned, not abrupt or arbitrary to jeopardize the success already recorded by the military. Reacting to concerns and appeals from governors and community leaders over the proposed withdrawal, President Buhari said the administration will not abandon citizens in need of protection. He urged Nigerians, especially public affairs analysts, to carefully study the statement following a Security Council meeting with service chiefs that the withdrawal of troops will be done after an assessment to determine areas where peace had returned to, enable civil authorities assume full control.
The African Development Bank says it plans to focus its attention on the continental free trade in 2020. President of the bank, Akinwumi Adesina, made this known in a chat with the media after a meeting with President Muhammadu Buhari in his office. Adesina noted the significance of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement to the growth of the continent and the need for a unified single currency for the region to realize the full benefits of the deal. Additional expressed beliefs that Africa will witness major economic growth with foreign direct investment expected to rise above 11% target in 2020, while announcing support plans for African leaders towards closing infrastructure financing gap. Former chairman of the House Committee on Appropriation, Abdulmumin Jibrin, says he has no rift with Kano State Governor Abdullahi Ganduje. The former lawmaker made this clarification over alleged reports that there might be a gang-up against his return to the National Assembly. In a chat with State House correspondent after a meeting with President Muhammadu Buhari early in the week, Jibrin said he is confident of returning to the National Assembly after the rerun polls. The Court of Appeal in Kaduna had sacked Abdulmumin Jibrin last month and ordered fresh election in Kiru Bebeji Federal Constituency, following an appeal by his main challenger in the PDP, Aliyu Yako.
Welcome back. As of December 2019, statistics made available by the United Nations International Children Efficiency Fund, UNICEF, has it that 1 out of 5 out-of-school children the world over is a Nigerian child. UNICEF records also have it that 10 million out-of-school children are located in just 8 states in Nigeria. That is alarming, you will say. This is the focus of our next segment, Dateline. Join us.
Even though primary education is officially free and compulsory, about 10.5 million of the country's children aged 5 to 14 years are not in school. Only 61% of 6 to 11 years old regularly attend primary school, and only 35.6% of children aged 36 to 59 months receive early education.
What it shows is that the country, as it were, may be joking with its future, because the future of any country rests on the children, because there are people to take over from the present crop of leaders.
The universal basic education policy, or which is even an act, criminalizes parents for not taking their children to school. How many parents have been arrested and taken to court, actively prosecuted for not enrolling their children in schools?
In the north of the country, the picture is even bleaker, with a net attendance rate of 53%. Getting out of school children back into education poses a massive challenge. Issues like geography and poverty is an important factor in the pattern of educational marginalization. States in the Northeast and Northwest have female primary net attendance rate of 47.7% and 47.3% respectively, meaning that more than half of the girls are not in school.
Some people's perception towards education is also an issue that has to be taken seriously by the government, and it has to be seriously enforced and mandated that parents must send their children to school. In some areas, people see having multiple kids as a means of sustaining their livelihood, and still believing that the more children they have, the more they are able to secure themselves. And so there's more education that needs to go with that. So there's an enforcement part of it to ensure that more people are mandated that they have to send their children to school.
The education deprivation across the country is driven by various factors, including economic barriers and social cultural norms and practices that discourage attendance in formal education, especially for girls. Ensuring education provision in predominantly rural areas and the impact of insurgency in the Northeast presents significant challenges. In northeastern and northwestern states, 29% and 35% of Muslim children respectively receive Quran education, which does not include basic skills such as literacy and numeracy. The government considers children attending such schools to be officially out of school. The education deprivation in northern Nigeria is driven by various factors, including economic barriers and social-cultural norms and practices that discourage attendance in formal education, especially for girls.
The situation where you have some states devoting 3% or 4% of their annual budget on education, that's not acceptable. That's grossly unfair. UNICEF is playing its role. UNICEF is also providing some technical assistance and infrastructure assistance, I'm sure, in various parts of the world, of course, in our country too. But then, you can't have UNICEF to do it for us.
UNICEF and other international agencies have evolved education program to support the government in achieving Sustainable Development Goals number 4 by 2030 through improving planning and by addressing some of the systematic barriers that hinders the implementation of an effective education strategy. These programs advocates for education to be prioritized and targets children who are least likely to receive an education. The expected outcome of programs is that all children access and complete quality education within a safe learning environment, gaining the skills and knowledge for lifelong learning. These intervention drives will be achieved by creating an enabling environment for education, improving the quality of education, increasing demand for education, and humanitarian assistance.
More than 10 million children in Nigeria are not able to access this right. The weight Nigeria carries in the world, if Nigeria cannot address the issue of out-of-school children, the world cannot address the issue of out-of-school children. That's the importance of Nigeria.
Now, this then requires that there is a need for all of us to come together, look at the issues holistically, and try to find concrete solutions of addressing the challenge or the problem of out-of-school children, especially in the northern part of the country.
The issue is to put together a formidable group to discuss this phenomenon and find a way through which we can work together to provide as much as possible a solution.
Other suggestions include that the education system at federal and state levels are strengthening capacities to deliver quality basic education. More teachers must have core knowledge and competencies to use proven teaching methodologies to deliver appropriate quality education. Parents and communities need to have improved knowledge and commitment to contribute to enrolling children at the right age in safe and protective school environments. And finally, children in humanitarian situations must have timely and sustained access to quality education services. In no time, the out-of-school children time bomb will be deactivated for a greater tomorrow for generations yet unborn.
Thanks for staying with us. The year 2019 will go down in the annals of the Nigerian socio-economic history. Aside Nigerians going through rigorous experience of general elections earlier in the year was indeed full of occurrences across the nation's economic terrains. This forms the crux of our topic on Split Views this week. Stay with us. Welcome to this segment of our program, Split Views. And on Split Views this week, we are having in our studio the national coordinator of the Muhammadu Buhari Oshimaju Dynamic Support Group. That's in person of Honorable Usman Ibrahim, Saudana Samari of Nigeria. You're welcome to the studio, sir.
Thank you very much.
We are trying to look at the 2019 in perspective. And that year has come and gone, quite all right. But it's full of memorable moments. What will you consider to be the highlights of that year 2019 in governance, socio-political issues, and as a country generally?
2019, I will consider it as a past. We are now hoping at 2020, which is a very blessable year, because the whole numbers, round figures, 2020, and which is, to me, I believe is a very lucky year for all of us Nigerians, and we should thank Almighty God for keeping us up to this time. 2019, the experience of being a political front runner I sincerely appreciate Nigerians for keeping to the promises. Been a lot of issues pertaining the campaign, a lot of people feelings as if as the whole time bomb and the whole of the country will be destroyed, but we thank God everything come as we expect, and that's a plus, and we thank God for that. Almighty has keeping us as one, and we have experienced some, benefit of such, like you could borrow from the past because the country was in a very serious, situation by the time the APC led government by His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari and Shmanjo team of meeting such problems, and every Nigerian, I believe, is still very fresh in our memory because we made it in a situation where you will see dollar has been kept in the farm, in toilet, and such of, as if as no tomorrow, and all this becomes Ghana. So we consider Almighty God for the place that He gave us Hosh one, and we thank God for what we have experienced.
Looking at the challenges bedeviling the country right now, I mean, in the recent past, we have been having several challenges, economically, politically, and socially. Now, will you consider the APC-led administration's commitments to the next level agenda as really in place? Is it really in line? I mean, are we online as it is?
Well, the next level is just the beginning. It just started. Of course, it's what we say next. We just started the next level. And of course, in the next level, if you look at the whole perspective that there were promises kept. Of course, in the campaign catchphrase of Mr. President, he promised three things, basically: corruption, economy, and security. In the economy, combined all together in the budget, he says this budget will be passed, will be submitted, and be delivered, and will be passed at the time frame, and that happens. But plus to the executive and legislative, we thank all Nigerians on behalf of them. We thank them for doing citing, because we now consider this 9th assembly is they're serious people, and we pray for Almighty God to keep them with that sustainable of that truthfulness.
Many have commended the National Assembly and the executive for jointly passing the budget at a very record time. Now we're having a new budget cycle. What will you consider to be the merits and demerits of this new budget cycle to an ordinary man on the streets?
Well, I don't think that the question it has a position for my thinking. I believe every human being, every person endeavor should think that budgeting, without budgeting, even if a layman will understand that must be budgeting. So budget in Nigeria on those days, first, yes, budget was, they were saying the budgeting these trillions, billions, and so on. I would just discover that only 5-10% was enacted and so on. And this one now, we've seen some physicality on process. We've seen, talking of roads, networking, some of certain things that this government is doing, considering when the situation they made on ground before. So I believe we should applaud them.
International diplomacy is part of governance all over the world. But many people have considered the recent foreign trips of Mr. President as not really yielding the necessary economic values. What's your take on this, sir?
I could have said I'm not in a ready position to answer that question, but definitely I will look at how I see it myself. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of achievement by the president by embarking on foreign trips. So many issues has come and gone, especially foreign interventions and so on, crises and so on. And look at how we manage our situations right now. Even though we know that as a nation, as a big nation like ours, we should consider that we have our responsibility behind. We manage much of all these crises within our region, which Nigeria is one of the key players. I think that is a plus. And I believe right now, for visa and all these kind of things, that Nigeria has regained a lot of respect. So many things. Even recently, there was a discovery of all this fraud, all these Yahoo's guys, Americans tracing them and so on, putting Nigeria in a kind of classification and so on. And at the end of the day, they discovered that Nigeria is one of the countries that can last with that. This is a plus. It's part of the achievement of the president. So many things that if you go dig down, you will discover that there are a lot of achievement to have a consideration for that.
The nation's land borders have been shut down from the 21st of August 2019, and even up to now, they still remain shut. Well, there have been many benefits according to some people in some quarters, but for those people who are living in those border areas, it's not been really palatable. Do you think that this drive should still be sustainable? I mean, it should be sustained, or we should have them reopened very soon?
I'm in the position that I'm in support of our local contents. Let's do everything. Because I can assure you that, I know, that Nigeria, whatever for consumption, even in terms of clothing, not to talk of food and all this thing, we do it here locally here. What's the essence of depending on things that will be made? We don't even know what kind of poison that it contains. We appreciate the government for making sure if it's only about safeguarding our health of this, our great nation. I think I'm in a position for the federal government, support the federal government to keep it first until pending when the situation arises. We need Nigerians, all of us should go to the farm. Let's consider that Nigeria, we own our problems about ourselves, and we solve it ourselves. We belong to each other. We don't belong to anywhere. And we should understand that there's nowhere somebody from outside will ever solve our problem until we.
You've really spoken well, sir. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, sir. Okay.
Restlessness of politics is going to be there. But any lover of this country will not talk about the succession plan yet. That's the truth. Concentrate on working for the country, help the president to help the country. It's not anything more than that. We cannot, 360 degrees, 365 times in a year work on politics. It is not possible. The challenge of turning the ship of this nation around is a continuum and continuous effort. And that is what we should get ourselves concerned. Yes, politics is intoxicating, is flamboyant, is interesting, but we cannot continue in perpetuity, one after the other. We have to relax, show concern for the people of the country, and see to the effort of the president that we manifest in the new, united, and prosperous country. We are still not there.
That is how far we can go on this first edition of Abuja Dispatch in 2020. For further information, comments, and suggestions, you can reach us out on our various social media platforms. Thanks for allowing us to share your moments on Abuja Dispatch tonight. A week from now, we'll bring you another refreshing package. Same time, same station. Adegboyega Arogbodo is my name. Have a good night.